In this video, I will show you how to create the Ferris wheel project spreadsheet and graph. Now, I am making up a Ferris wheel, so don't copy me. Your Ferris wheel will have different dimensions than mine, so you will have to change the correct numbers to fit your particular Ferris wheel. So for my Ferris wheel that I'm just making up, I'm imagining that the radius of the Ferris wheel is 25 feet. All right, so the radius of the Ferris wheel is 25. Maybe I should write this down. So radius is equal to 25 feet. I am further imagining that in order for a person to make a full trip, one rotation of this Ferris wheel, I'm imagining that that takes 2 minutes. It's a really big Ferris wheel. It's very slow. Maybe it's not that big, but it's a very slow moving Ferris wheel. It's going to take 2 minutes to complete a rotation. So let's write that down. Okay. One rotation. Can't spell rotation. One rotation takes 2 minutes. Uh, 2 minutes is 120 seconds. So we're going to wind up using the seconds. Anyway, a little bit more information. Ferris wheels don't sit on the ground. They have some kind of a platform that allow people to climb up onto the Ferris wheel. So let's say this is the ground down here. And so here's the little platform that people can climb up on. All right, so people are boarding the Ferris wheel here. Okay, and this platform height, you know, maybe so I don't make it too confusing, I'll let the platform just sit just like this. All right, so this is the platform that people climb to get on the Ferris wheel right here. And the height of this platform is 10 feet. Okay, so this is 10 feet right here. Okay, and this is the ground, by the way. All right, this is the ground. So before we make the spreadsheet for the height of the rider over time, let's just see if we can come up with an equation for the height of the rider for the height of the rider over time. So look, imagine that the x-axis was right here. All right, here's the x-axis. And just so it's not interfering with my picture, I'm going to put my y-axis over here. Okay, so on the x-axis, we have time. So right at 0, 0, that is time 0. So where do people get on the Ferris wheel? Well, people get on the Ferris wheel right here at the very bottom. They climb up this platform and they get on the Ferris wheel. So at time 0, they're at the very bottom of the Ferris wheel. So I'll just put that right here. So time 0, a person will be here at the bottom. Now, the Ferris wheel starts to rotate, and after a while, a person will reach this position. All right, they're rising up. So, okay, so after a while, that means the person's going to be here. After more time passes, the person is going to be here. Okay, so after a while, the person will be here. Now, what are these heights anyway? So down here at the bottom, if the x-axis is at 0, remember that the radius is 25. So that means, you know, it's positive 25 if you're up in the air, but if you're down on the bottom, that's going to be like a minus 25. So this is negative 25 right here, and this is positive 25 up at the top. So, all right, I got a negative 25, and I've got a, lost my marker, and I've got a positive 25. Okay, so of course, as the person keeps traveling around the Ferris wheel, eventually they get back to this height, all right, the center of the circle. So they get back to this height, and as they keep going around and complete one revolution, they come back to where they started, which is back down here again. So one path, all right, one rotation, if we track the height of a rider, would look like this. Okay, now let's come up with an equation for this graph, treating the x-axis as 0. And right now we're letting the x-axis go right through the center of the Ferris wheel. Let's come up with an equation for that. So first of all, is this a sine function or a cosine function? I'm hoping that you recognize that this is a cosine function. Here's something that you should have learned a long time ago. Okay, just briefly, if I have a graph that goes like this, you should have learned that this is y equals sine theta. Okay, where theta is like the angle. Now, on the other hand, if you have a graph that looks like this, that is what cosine looks like. All right, so this would be the graph of y equals cosine theta. And look how similar this looks to this. All right, it's the same thing except for it's upside down. So hopefully you've learned that if you want to take a graph and turn it upside down, wrong ink size. If you want to take a graph and turn it upside down and make it more like this, this is going to be y equals negative cosine, well, I should have said theta. Y equals negative cosine theta. So that's what we have going on up here. This is a negative cosine function. Maybe I'll write this down. Y equals negative cosine of the angle. Why am I leaving this space right here? Well, when you're dealing with these functions, cosine theta has an amplitude of 1. It has a height of 1 and a low of -1. But, for example, if I put a 2 right here, that changes the amplitude. And if there's a 2 there, then it will have a high of 2 and a low of -2. So this number is the amplitude, the high and the low. So what is the high and the low on this picture? Well, the high is 25 and the low is -25. That means that the amplitude is 25. So that means we need a 25 right here. That's why I left this space. So this is the equation that we are going to get on our spreadsheet. This is the equation that we're going to use. Y equals -25 times cosine of the angle. All right, so let's jump over to the spreadsheet. We want a Google sheet. So look, what I'm typing in to get this is, what did I type in? Drive, I'm typing in drive.google.com. All right, so if you have no idea what you're doing, you type in drive.google.com. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. drive.google.com. All right, that takes you here. So I'm going to hit New, and I'm going to pick Google Sheet. All right, now I've got a brand new Google Sheet. Let's go ahead and change the title and call it Ferris Wheel Project. All right, so in the first column, we're going to put time. All right, so ultimately we need 3 full rotations. So what did I say one rotation would be? All right, let's take a look back here again. One rotation is 2 minutes, but I want to use seconds. So one rotation is 120 seconds. So what will 3 rotations be? All right, so 3 rotations. All right, well, that's just going to be 3 times 120. So that's going to be 360. 360 seconds. All right, so I'm going to need 360 seconds worth of data right here. So please start with 0 seconds, because at 0 seconds, that's when you're right at the start of this thing. All right, you're just getting on. So we don't want to skip that and go to 1 second. Let's start at 0 seconds. All right, I think it'll make it more clear. So 0 seconds, and then we'll have all the seconds after that, 0 and 1. Okay, now here's a special shortcut for those of you who are not super familiar with spreadsheets. If you highlight 2 cells, and I already have the numbers 0 and 1 in here, if I grab this corner, okay, let me try that again. If I grab this corner, the plus sign appears, and I can drag it. So if I drag this corner down, let me show you what's happening. It will just fill in these numbers for me, so I don't have to type them all in. So I need to drag this down until I get all the way to 360. All right, so I'm dragging and dragging. I'm looking at the numbers on the left until I get close to 360. Okay, I'm almost there. All right, there's 360, but I better go to 360. Okay, I went to 362 on this, so I would get to 360 because we had the 0 in there and we had the heading. All right, so this should be enough for 3 rotations, 3 sets of 120 seconds. All right, what do I need next? All right, next I need degrees. Okay, this is, well, let me be more specific. We're going to do the rotation in degrees. All right, so at time 0, excuse me, at time 0 we haven't rotated at all, so we have moved 0 degrees. Now, how many degrees will we rotate in 1 second? Well, we are going to rotate a full 360 degrees in 120 seconds. All right, because remember, 120 seconds, that is 1 rotation. So I will go in 120 seconds, I will rotate 360 degrees. So if I divide 360 by the total time, that's going to tell me how many degrees I will go in 1 second. So remember, you will have to change this number. Like you're not going to have 120. So if it takes your Ferris wheel, I don't know, 100 seconds to go one rotation, then you'll divide by 100. If your Ferris wheel rotates a full turn in 30 seconds, then you'll divide by 30. All right, so anyway, so now I have this number. Okay, in the rest of these cells, I need to put a formula. All right, so I need to multiply by whatever number I have right here. Okay, so if in 1 second it goes 3 degrees, in 2 seconds it'll be 2 times that. Okay, so I need to put equals, and what I'm going to do is this cell next door is cell A4. So I want to multiply that cell by 3. So I'm going to go A4 times 3. Okay, and you see it says 6. But if I click on the cell, you can see the formula. It's A4 times 3. Now, if I click on this little corner and drag it, it automatically fills in the next formula, A5 times 3. So it's going to multiply all of these by 3. Now again, on your graph, on your chart, you're not going to have 3 right here. All right, mine is 3 because my wheel takes 120 seconds, and so I divide by 120. You're going to have a different number. You're going to have a different number right here. So whatever that is, even if it's a decimal, in your formula, that's what you're going to multiply by. Whatever number you have will go in the formula, and then you will drag it down. You will drag it down to the end of the list. Whoa, too far, too far. Bam! There you go. All right, next column. Well, our formula needs to be in radians though, because just that's how the spreadsheet runs on radians. So I'm going to still have rotation, but let's call it rotation radians. Okay, rotation radians. All right, I'm just going to widen this up a little. I'm double clicking. Whoops. Space it out. So how do I get radians? So I want to turn all of these degrees into radians. So what you do is, right here, you hit an equal sign for a formula, and you just type in radians like that, and you put parentheses, and then you can just click on the square next door to tell it that you want the square next door, and then close your parentheses. So if I hit enter right now, I messed up. Maybe I have to do all caps. All right, let me try that again with capital letters. So equals radians, parentheses, click on it, close parentheses. Okay, I guess it has to be all capital letters. All right, so obviously 0 degrees is 0 radians, but if I click on this little handle right here until the plus sign forms, and then I drag it down, let's just take a look. These numbers are all being turned into radians. All right, so let's just keep on dragging it down. Okay, that is the third column. So, all right, so finally in the fourth column, we've been building up to be able to put in this function right here. Y equals -25 times the cosine of the angle. All right, and this is where we're going to do the radians. So let's go ahead and type that into our spreadsheet. So, see, what are we going to call this? Let's just call this cosine. All right, let's call this cosine height. It's the height of the cosine function. All right, so we don't have to type y equals. We just go straight for the equals part. But we said we were going to have negative cosine times negative 25 times cosine of the angle. So we will type negative 25 times cosine, cosine, parentheses, and the angle is the cell next door. So you could either type in C2 or you could just click on it and close your parentheses. All right, so this is what your formula should look like. Now again, yours won't be negative 25. I have negative 25 because the radius of my Ferris wheel is 25. If your radius, if your Ferris wheel has a 30-foot radius, then you're going to put minus 30. So you put your radius right here. Okay. Now, so at time 0, the cosine height is negative 25. Does that make sense? Yes, because we're right here on the graph, okay, at negative 25. All right, so that makes sense. Okay, so back to the spreadsheet. So we need to drag that down. Just make the plus sign show up and then get to dragging. Just drag it, y'all. Drag it. Oh gosh, I always overshoot. Okay, let's look at a couple other values to double check that it makes sense. At the halfway point, we should be at the highest value. So if 120 seconds is the entire rotation, half of 120 is 60. So at 60 seconds, I should be right in the middle. I should be at the highest point. So at 60 seconds, I should be at 25 feet. Let's double check that. All right, so I'm just going to scroll down until I get to 60 seconds. All right, I'm scrolling down. All right, so here we are right here at 60 seconds, 25 feet, the maximum height. So it makes sense. All right, we have one last column to do because what we really want is the height of the rider above the ground. So we want the rider height. Okay, we want the height of the rider above the ground, not this cosine height that goes negative 25, positive 25. We want to know how high the rider is above the ground. So for that, we need to make one final adjustment. So basically, we need to change the x-axis. Okay, so I'm going to erase these marks here as well for a second. We want the x-axis to now be the ground. Okay, so if the x-axis is the ground, then that means this midline that we were using before, all right, how high above the ground is it? Because now the ground is now 0. This green line is now 0. So how high up is the dotted line that I just put, the midline? Well, let's see. The platform is 10 feet, so I've got 10 right here. Now, then the radius is another 25 feet. All right, so that's going to be 10 and then another 25 feet. So this should be 35 right here. And then if I go another 25 feet up to the top, that's going to be 60. All right, 35 plus 25 is 60. But for right now, I want you to focus on the midline. In fact, let me clear this out a little bit. The midline is at 35 feet. So we have learned that if you want to modify a function and shift it up. All right, so I'm moving the midline from 0, and I'm moving it all the way up to 35. So the way that you do that is you just have to add 35 to all of these numbers. Okay, basically you're adding 35 to whatever you had before. So honestly, I could just modify the formula, and I could put a plus 35 on the end of the formula. All right, that would just put the final answer right here. But instead of doing that, let's just do it in another column so we can kind of see it happening. So we're going to make another equation, so put an equal sign, and then we're just going to take the value next door, the previous value, so I could just click on it, or I could have just typed D2, and I'm going to simply add 35 to that. All right, and this should be the rider height. Now, does this first value make sense? Okay, so let's look at the picture one more time. All right, yes, it does make sense because right at the beginning, the rider enters the Ferris wheel at the bottom, but the platform is 10 feet high. So the rider starts off 10 feet off the ground. So at time 0, it makes sense that the rider is 10 feet off the ground. Okay, so at the halfway point, remember half of 120 is 60. So at 60 seconds, the rider should be at the highest point, which should be 60 feet. All right, at 60 seconds, they should be at 60 feet. So let's drag, all right, make the plus sign appear and start dragging. And I'm going to pause when I get to 60 seconds. Okay, it looks like it did not drag. Let me try that again. Okay, and just like we expected, at 60 seconds, we are at 60 feet. All right, so it is working. So I'm just going to continue and drag this all the way down. Three full rotations worth of data. Okay, and that's it for the data. I mean, we might put some, let's make the first row bold. Okay, let's just make that bold because those are the headings. Let's put some colors on here. Let's see, we'll use the fill tool, and let's just throw some colors on here. Some purple, some blue, some green. Okay, some yellow. Whoa, wrong tool. So yellow. And I guess orange. Okay. So now that's it for the data. It's time for the chart. So for the chart, you really want to, you need to select your data. Okay, so I am going to, I'm clicking the first square of my data, all right, the, A1, and now I'm going to scroll down to the end of my data, if I can. I'm holding down the Shift key as I click the last square. So now I've selected the whole thing. All my data has been selected. All right, and I could have dragged. That would have taken a little longer. So now I'm going to hit Insert. Insert Chart. Okay, now because I have grabbed onto more, I have 5 rows. But really, I just want the beginning and the end. I want column. I want column A and E, the first column and the last column. I want to take out the 3 column. I want to take out the blue and the green and the yellow. I don't want those. So how do I do that? You know what? I might have to shift the whole screen so you can see. I'm going to shift over here for a second. Okay, so as I scroll down, see we have the degrees and the radians and the cosine height. We don't want any of those three. So I'm just going to click on this and I'm going to choose remove. And I'm going to click on this one, remove. Click on this one, remove. All right, so I'm just left with the time and the rider height. That's all I really wanted. While I'm at it, let me see if I can drag this over into view. So you can see how beautiful the graph looks. Let's change the heading. Let's have a better title, and we need a label for the y-axis. So I'm going to hit Customize, Chart and Axis Titles. Let's do that. Let's change the chart title, which right now just has all of these things. Okay, so let's just delete all that and put Ferris wheel. I'm still deciding Ferris wheel. Ferris wheel project. Okay, I think I'll have a subtitle. So we have Ferris wheel project, and I'm clicking on this. I'm going to pick chart subtitle, and let's call it height of rider over time. I need a space in there. All right, height of rider over time. Ferris wheel project, height of rider over time. Okay, let's modify the label of the x-axis and let's give the y-axis a label. So let's click on this again, horizontal axis title. So I just want to be more specific, and I want to say time in seconds. All right, that's great. And now let's do the vertical axis title, and this is height in feet. All right, I feel like I would like to change the color of the title, so I'm going to go back to chart title, and I just want to change the color. So let's see, I think I would like it to be magenta. Boom. All right, I think I'll make the subtitle I'll change that color as well. I'll just make it purple. Okay, look how pretty that is. So really, at this point, we are done. Just going to slide this back over so you can see it all. So I am just going to, if you click on this graph, you can begin to move it around. So you can see that all three rotations are pictured on this graph. I'm just going to move it over off to the side so I'm not covering up my Ferris wheel situation. Okay, and there it is. We are done. You know, if I scroll over here, you can see that I've got my lovely Ferris wheel graph, and I've got my beautiful data, and now that's a project. That's a project. One more thing. So you guys have to share. When you share the link on a Word document, you need to make sure you share it. So you need to click on this, and yours might say something different right here, but you need to change it. And if I click on this little drop down arrow, you want to make sure it says anyone with link. So I'm switching this to anyone with link. Okay, so now if I were to hit copy link, now that's in memory, so I can just close this out. So if I were to go back and open up a Word document and paste this link somewhere. So just to demonstrate, just put it right here just for fun, but just pretend that was a Word document. This would be the link to the spreadsheet. So you post this on Edgenuity, and then I click on it, and it takes me to your project. So you'll make sure that you create a Word document that includes all of this information for your particular Ferris wheel, and a picture. And then at the bottom of that Word document is where you're going to paste your link. And then that's what you share into Edgenuity. And that's how it's done, guys.